Guys, we're finally here. Happy Monday. I apologize for the delay today. Okay. Just kind of getting things organized, as you can see, kind of all over the place. Thank you everyone for still being here, even though we are an hour late. And thank you to everyone that came and watched the Fabio Pavelli Together We Stand competition commentary, let's call it. And thank you for everyone who submitted an image. It was really exciting to see all the work that you guys did. And it was great to have Clark and Fabio and Jason there to talk about it. So, very much appreciated and thank you. Been needing that. Let me get my things opened. So I had an idea that I think is kind of cool. I think I need to move this camera. Something like that. I'm still not organized at all over here. Look, the keyboard's all the way over here. We're all over the place. But, I think we have a cool, I'm excited about today. I'm a little nervous about today, if I'm being 100% honest. We're gonna look at an old image that I made right when I started 3 Marks. That I wasn't happy with then. I could never really get it to do the thing that I wanted it to do. And today we're gonna jump into Photoshop and see if we can get it to something that I'd be happy with. Dario, no excuses accepted. Okay, fair enough. I can't argue with that. Nitin, thank you for being here. Vlad, Milan, Iman, Matthias, Sarquat, Nicholas, guys, thank you all for being here. Very appreciated. Oh, and there you go, Nicholas, see? Happy accidents. Happy accidents. To anybody that wasn't watching the last stream with Fabio, I would encourage you guys to check it out afterwards. I thought it was a good conversation, and I'm glad that we had it. I have another file I need to open here. Okay. Oh, Pedro. Thank you for being here too, Peter. I appreciate it, buddy. Okay, so let's look at this image that we are going to try and fix today with the magic of Photoshop. Let's see. Screen. No. This one. Okay, so this is the image that I made 5 years ago now. And let's go to give you guys just a little bit of context about it. So this project, we made a bunch of images for. I did this project with my good buddy Mike Glaudeman and I. And here's kind of the set of images that we made, kind of in the order that we made them. This was like a teaser image. This was the first quote-unquote hero image that I never quite liked, and this is the one we're going to try and do better up with today. This was that image in color. Some of the living rooms. Yeah, this is another image I was never quite happy with. We're looking at 5-year-old work. What can you do? If you don't look at work from 5 years ago and think I could do better now, something's wrong. But, yeah. So this was the project. Lots of bathrooms. I liked this image. And then we also got to do the images that I do still like the most for this project, but I really like this one. We ended up doing a blue sky hero image, and I think that part of that's because I didn't do a great job on the moody image. But we also got to make these 3 images, which I really liked, and they were really quick and fun to make. So that's the project. Oh, Nicholas, it's not going to take you 5 years, buddy. Not at all. So that's the project. And the idea for this image, I feel like this was like a huge miss on my behalf. Because this image, when we initially were talking about it with the client, the idea was to do, you guys know that feeling when there's like a big thunderstorm, and before the thunderstorm's like completely gone, the sun comes out, and so like everything's wet, but the sun feels really bright and beautiful. That was the idea. This image does not capture that. Let's call it spade a spade. And this is as good as I was able to make it. And this Photoshop file, I probably spent 2 or 3 days, I would guess, Photoshopping this. I don't remember now. But this Photoshop file, if you guys can see this on the right, it's a mess even by my standards. We're like not even halfway through all of the nonsense in this thing. And then this is the girl. I mean, it's a mess. And we're still going. Oh, and there's the base. Oh, and then we still have the skies folder. And we have this folder. And then we have more. I mean, like, look at the guys. Don't be like me. And then we get down to the render elements. So anyways, we're basically going to throw away all. I thought about whether or not we should start from the beginning or try to Photoshop on top of this one. And I think that we're going to go right back to the beginning. So we're going to look at this image. This was like the raw rendering, straight out of the frame buffer. And then we replaced the background, and then everything was Photoshopped on top of it. The only thing that we're going to keep is a couple of masks that I believe I made for this image. And then we have our little girl with all of like the color adjustments, because that's what that picture looked like. So we're going to leave all of that there. But we're going to see if we can't, in an hour, are we going to get it to a point where it's fixed? I don't know. But if we can get it to a point where it's at least pointing towards an image, I'll be happy. That's my goal. So not finished, but suggesting something that turned out better than this. Now, before we get started, I did very quickly go and grab a little bit. I went and looked for reference, which whenever you're doing like a unique mood, I think is like a really, really great idea to say like, okay, so what does this look like when photographers capture? Because I think we all know that feeling of, it was just storming and now the sun's come out and it's beautiful, but kind of stormy still. But I feel like I have a very specific mental image of what that looks like and a sensation of what that feels like. Looking for it in photographs, I couldn't really find an example with like 20 minutes of Googling of anything that matched what I had in my head. And my general feeling when that happens, it's not to think, well, no photographer has ever thought to capture said event. It usually means that what I think I'm seeing in my head is not something that's ever happened. So we have this image with like this isn't so much it just rained, but we have like stormy clouds and sunlight. Which I've done images like this quite a bit. This one's kind of closest to I think what's in my head, even though you don't really get a sense that it just rained, but you have a storm either coming or going, depending on how you think of it. When you look at images like this, where we have blue skies but everything's wet, or like this is another one, right? Like if you ignored the reflections, there's nothing to suggest it's just rain. The sky is blue, and it almost always is in the images that I found. You still have some people with umbrellas up here, blue skies. This is clearly stormy. This is a different mood. Sunlight, clouds, so there's kind of a mix there of like hard light and soft light. Hard light, but then storm clouds. And this one's probably as close as I could find to it, and it's a long ways off from this like raw rendering, right? Where we have like white skies or cloudy skies and foggy. Like there's no suggestion in this image that the sun has come out, right? The lighting that I used is super duper soft. So I just think that I have something in my mind that doesn't really exist. And I think that happens a lot when you hear a client ask for like a beautiful living room that is a beautiful living room and like a beautiful dusk backdrop, right? Like you really can't find photographs of that unless you find some really bad like HDR ones, because if you go inside of a living room and it's dusk outside, the windows are just black mirrors effectively. But in your head, you could imagine how that would be a beautiful image, and so the clients believe that it exists. I think this is the same thing happening, only for me. So, with that, let's try and Photoshop this bad boy. I don't know how it's going to go. Matthias, yes, this was initially rendered in V-Ray. This would have probably been V-Ray, maybe V-Ray 2? Probably just into the beginning of V-Ray 2, I would guess. 2.2 maybe? Something like that. 2.4. Okay, so I did grab a couple of skies that I think that we might be able to use so that we're not just spending all of my time staring into Windows Explorer images, because nobody wants to see that. So I grabbed a couple of skies that kind of have some blue sky, but some ominous clouds or big clouds. And I think we're going to start by trying to get those figured out. And that's the plate that's going to get fixed. What we are going to do is grab... Oh, where'd that go? What we are going to try and do is we'll add a little bit of contrast into this so that it doesn't stand out quite so much. But we'll fix this. We'll color correct this later. Let's see if we can't get a sky that we like and try to work from there. Okay. Oh, and I was going to turn the music back on because I don't know where the music has gone. Oh, wait. Can you guys hear music? Oh, yeah. There's still music. Okay. So into the skies folder, we're going to throw all of these skies. Oh. Photoshop, you son of a bitch. That's okay. Oh, lordy, lordy. How's everybody doing today? How are their weekends? Well, I hope. And I hope they had good weekends. Okay, let's delete that giant file and then we'll just join everything. This one we're not going to need. And let's just save and close that guy. Oh, yeah, they're already opened. I think this will be faster. Who knows? Who knows? Close, files, scripts, load files into stack. Other window, pulling it down, add open files. Okay. I guess I probably could have done this beforehand. I apologize. It's all this little stuff that takes up all the time. But that's okay. We want options. If I just drag them in individually and test them, I'll go with the first one that looks good. This way we can quickly kind of check all of them. Normally I don't spend this much time looking for a sky, but obviously for the mood that we're going for, or the atmosphere that we're going for, that's going to be largely driven by the sky itself. So for this one, we're going to grab it. Okay. Voila, that is gorgeous. It's funny, I actually, when I opened up this file and looked at the raw rendering last night, when I kind of thought that this might be fun to do, my first thought was, okay, we shouldn't start in Photoshop. Let's just go and fix this thing. Let's just go and fix this thing in 3D. But then I opened the 3D file and it was like all these plugins that I haven't used in forever and you know, haven't installed on this new computer yet. So I'm like, let's not do that. Though I do think that would be fun to like take like a living room image that I made 5 or 6 years ago and redo it and just see what I end up with. I think that could be cool. Okay, so we got all these dramatic skies. Let's see here. Let's take all of them and get them into place-ish, or at least so that we can find them all. I think they're all aligned in the top left. And let's have a look-sees. That one, my gut's saying no. The sun is actually coming from the left in this image as it's been flipped, so we're gonna say no on that one, I think. Excuse me. And I will say that this is kind of the way that I do generally look for skies, which is first go and just kind of grab a bunch of them that I think may look cool, and then just start dropping them all in. That one's a maybe. It's not great how it is, but it might be one that we could work with, so to speak. Not really doing it for me. I don't really... There's like... Obviously, like, the colors aren't going to match, and so I'm kind of trying to ignore that. But I am looking at, like, the shape of the clouds. Looking at it in black and white's a quick way to ignore the color. Right? So I'm just, like, toggling back and forth with my proof preview setup. I want something that suggests storm was either just here, well, I guess, yeah, just here. Clark, thank you for being here, my friend, and thank you for being on the judging competition with us. It was a pleasure to finally actually talk to you, and I appreciate you sticking through and doing some more streaming stuffs here with us. So I'm kind of feeling, no, what's the one that I liked the best so far? I kind of like that one the best so far. We'll make them orange. The ones that we kind of like. And I'm keeping this one because I feel like we might be able to use those two together. That one, not really digging. This one, see, we don't have the luxury of putting like major storm clouds down on the horizon. Like you would maybe if this was like a wide open shot in a field. Because we don't get to see much horizon, right? The only part of the sky that we actually see is quite high. And then that's just, yeah, no. We're not gonna do that one. That one I'm not liking. This one, let's see here. And the sun, I think, is too close to the middle of the image in this one. We're gonna say no on that. Ooh, this one's got a very different mood, at least how it was captured. Oops. See, something like this might actually work once we start and color correct it, because we have the idea of sky opening up. That's kind of what I'm trying to think of. We're gonna put an orange next to that guy. Nicholas, the back is photos, so everything, that's what was 3D. And then everything else is a photograph for this guy. Ooh, that's a big image. Let's see. This thing is huge. I think that one gets a maybe. I like the sky getting darker behind this dark part of the building. To kind of try and talk through what I'm seeing when I'm thinking of these things. So now there's something cool about that too, right? Like this. That one I kind of like too. We're gonna have we might have some decision issues. These were the brighter skies. And for an image like this that I know is gonna get pretty heavily edited in post here, I'm not, like, this sky is too small. But for a sky, you can kind of usually hide that as long as the quality is not that bad. Like if it's high quality, just too small, you can hide it pretty easily, but that's not doing anything for me. Whoa. What did I press? Huh. Don't know how I got to that little shortcut I don't know yet. I feel I don't like that, but I'm gonna keep it in here while we start to do some. So the idea of what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna delete all of the blue or red ones right off the bat. The idea that I have in my head is to kind of quickly do some quick color adjustments and quick adjustments to this whole thing once I have some skies in there to see if any of them are working. So it's kind of like, let's do a quick sketch to see the potential once we've selected. That's too ominous, I believe. That could be a fun sky to use in normal for sketch image or a Droki image. If you were to give that to a client, they'd lose it. That sky is cool. I really like this sky, but this image I would have to go back and I'm not going to be able to paint in this type of light into this image. I don't think. So we're going to skip it. Okay, so these are our contenders. Let's start with the one that I think... These are kind of the same, only one's a little bit darker and one's turned. We don't need to do both of them. Which one do we like more? I like that one more. It's darker, but that's okay. We'll make our adjustments as need be. That one I don't think is going to work. Okay, let's go to our favorite one. Something like this, and let's see if we can't start kind of blocking in some colors to this guy. So the blue colors, I want to have a little bit less cyan in them, and I want them to be desaturated. We don't want to go that dark with the sky altogether. Something like this, and we're going to... Down here we have the actual photo plate that's being used for all of this. And so for this guy, we're going to kind of lift up the blacks a little bit. We're going to colorize it to kind of start to fit in with this kind of coolish mood. Just a hint. And I think we actually need to get some warmth into some of the highlights here. No, scratch that idea. We're going to cool down. We're going to cool down the base image. We'll bring some warmth back. We'll definitely bring some warmth back, or a lot of warmth probably back into this image. But right now, I just want to get it to where everything's kind of fitting together. And hopefully looking okay. Which I think right now is just a matter of getting the colors. You can see these bright oranges and yellows that we don't have anywhere else in the image. Greens are atrociously green. So we're going to do that and desaturate them. And we don't want that to affect our beautiful yellow cabs, I don't think. So we're just going to color that over the tree stuffs. Okay. So like that's obviously not a great color grade. This building looks very, very strange. We're going to have to fix that. But it's enough to sit together to kind of get a better visual representation of what we're looking at. Or better visual representation of the direction that this thing is going to move in, hopefully. With that one. So that's that one's not bad. Let's try this one. try and make those clouds feel a little bit stormier. Let's take the blues and make them darker. More saturated, maybe? That might, this one. I'm trying to do this in a way. There's a part of me that just wants to say, screw it, let's go like super moody with this image. Since I'm not actually doing this for a client. But the thing that I'm kind of thinking is that there's little value in that. Right? Because we could go just full on super heavy fog and make this thing fun and gritty and all of that, but you'd never be able to sell that to a client. And the major failure, as I see it in this image, was that I could have made like a cool, more emotional image than they ended up using, the blue sky one, and I missed the point. And I do think that this sky is good from like a client perspective of like, it's kind of happy. I think we're going to end up, I should bite the bullet. We're going to have to do it over here, and we'll have to fill that sky in if we use this one. That might work, though. Let's see how our content-aware fill does on this. Content-aware, no, Get the right thing selected. Not great. But the exception of that little top part did not. We're not going to see most of it. Let's do it again. Sometimes content aware like blows my mind in what it can get done, and sometimes I'm like, get rid of the edge. How is it not obvious that I want the edge to go away? Okay, we'll stay at the rest. That one might be the winner. You can kind of see already how I messed up the lighting on the sky on the building, right? Like this sky suggests that we want harder edges. I don't know how much we're going to be able to pull them back, but we're going to try to in post. So that one I think is, yeah, that one, no client in the world is ever going to let me do like a black sky. So we're going to delete that. Make some decisions, move forward. I'm going to say the same comment on this one. Client's never going to say yes. That one doesn't feel like a storm to me. Let's see, what other, oh, that's all we got on that one. I feel like having the dark sky on the right, which is how this sun's kind of dictating this image needs to be, really skews the composition. I think we want those silhouettes to read stronger, which they will read stronger on a bright sky behind them than a dark. Okay, so we're going with kind of the happiest sky of the bunch, sort of. We'll see how it works out. Let's see how it works out. Let's see here. Okay, so let's start getting this buildings together. So one thing that I wonder if I fixed this in the last one. In the hopes of not doing a ton of extra work, we are gonna have to. Can I work while it's opening an image? I cannot. I feel like I should have known that. the lighting from when I took the background plate image is different from the lighting that we have in the actual scene, which is kind of overcasty, but you can see the directionality up here in the towers. And I wonder if I never really did change that. You can see just how bad I did originally. Like, this is where I my initial comp of everything together was like this, which is just, I made things arguably worse, and then slowly brought things together and together. But what I'm wondering is, in the plate, did I do selections for, where's the one? No, not really. I was hoping I would have done some better work there. I did not. It's okay. So I do want some atmosphere coming in off the right. Let's first grab, let's see what kind of layers I have here, which I need to be able to read. Nope, that's not what I want to make big. Raw lighting. You can see how soft the light is there, but we might be able to use that. So let's grab that and take it up to the base. See what happens if we start dropping this guy on here. And we have all kinds of fun channels, which I would say is too many at this point, but such is life. One of the issues I feel like with having those super complete selection sets is that it just takes too damn long to actually find anything. So without worrying about some of the messiness, that at least gives like a more sense of like an actual direct light hitting this building. And then I think we need to darken down some of the stuff in the back. And I think we need to be a little bit selective because I want, overall, there's a couple of things I want to have happen. One is that I do actually want to see a little bit of like a lens, not lens flare, that's the wrong word, some like volumetric light coming in from the right. That's obviously way overdone, but that's okay. And we're going to kind of continually work on this with a couple of different methods, but let's start to kind of grow some of these things coming out. And then that building's super cool. What a ridiculously complex file organization I used for this image initially, which I think we're just going to have to change. Otherwise, we're going to spend all of this time just trying to figure out where I should be putting these things. We are going to add a little bit more depth in back here to the plate. Kind of let some of this stuff sit back further. Get rid of the orange in the plate because we don't need that. That's just distracting. Load it. And then there's a couple of things I want to do in the foreground, or that might actually just be overall. Let's throw some like kind of heavy for now vignette into it. All right, so that's obviously easy technique to kind of draw everyone's attention in. Let's go ahead and put our girl in. Girl with the umbrella. She's too saturated. I'm just gonna keep on climbing on top here. Bring that down just a, you know, a huge. Not sure what that word was. And here you're seeing kind of the thing that you guys hear me talking about all of the time, which is I'm not fixing the most important things at the moment. Which is basically just because I haven't quite decided how to tackle them. And so I'm fixing some things that I know I'm going to want to shift. Whilst giving myself the opportunity to kind of think. Okay, so a couple of things that we're definitely going to need to do. Messing the difference between this and a screen layer. Do you mean using curves instead of a screen layer for the light? I need a little bit more. What exactly are you comparing it to? And I'd be happy to talk about it. While you were doing that, we do need to do a couple of things. We need to separate out like our hero building, the building we're actually trying to show, from this building. And we're going to do that. How are we going to do that? We're going to do that by darkening the buildings behind it. Okay, so let's figure out a way to work here. Okay, so that's our base. Everything behind that we're just going to put in the same group and edit together for the time being, unless we're going to go back to the sky. So we're going to make that guy blue. Girl, we're going to change to orange because red means leave it off. Okay, so behind our building, I want to darken some of this and lighten some of it. And we are going to just work super quickly and roughly right now. And we will, we probably won't have time to clean it up today, but that's okay. We're going to do all that. I'm not going to use the sky for that. Okay. Right, so the idea kind of in my head that I'm kind of thinking about is, okay, so the buildings right behind our building are in shadow. We have like a, coming through the clouds, we have light hitting our building. But that means we need to darken the background. What you have to be careful of is when you darken the background, it tends to flatten an image as opposed to show more depth in it. And so we're going to see. And so I do think that that does remove some depth, but it also makes our building stand out. And at the end of the day, the real goal is the building. So we're going to leave that there. I'm going to take these colors in the building. I'm going to tone them all down quite a bit. Leave a little bit of color on like the sun facing side, but then we'll turn down the color on the other side so that it just doesn't grab quite as much attention. Okay. And now the other thing that I want to have read, that we're not going to bother fixing that. That was a poor rendering decision. But one thing that I do want to have happen here, is I want this edge, the building kind of steps back here and steps back, and I want that edge to be visible. And so we're going to clip it to the building, and I'm just going to brighten up the edge right here. And actually I'm going to do it slightly differently. So we're just going to brighten the lower edge, and we're going to there should maybe be a little bit of warmth in that. Not that much warmth. And then we're going to darken just beyond it. We're not going to worry too much about the selection set being clean. But the one thing you guys are going to see me do basically every time I make a selection with the lasso tool is feather it by like 0.4 pixels. Otherwise you end up with really terrible edges. And then this one we're going to darken just a bit. And just not quite that much. And we could go through and select all of these little faces and make them brighter too, but we're not going to because it's a lot of work and it's not going to matter. Mason, yeah, there's not really any major difference as far as the end result goes. It's really just which one do you feel like you have more control or is more comfortable of? We will probably paint in some color with a screen layer, just as you're suggesting. It's kind of, I think that there are advantages. A curves layer is easier to kind of adjust, and you can adjust midtones versus highlights versus shadows, and you have more control than painting in some ways, at least in the color part. For me, more often than not, those decisions are really just like whichever one comes to my head first. I'm just trying to move forward as much and as quickly as possible. So yeah, so I don't have like a great answer for you on that one, except to say I very much believe that whatever comes to mind first is probably the right answer. And the more, at least for me, I found, like right now, I'm reaching for color balance. And why am I reaching for color balance? Because it's the first thing that came to my mind for fixing. I want there to be some warmth on this side. And so like that came to mind, and so I grabbed it and then we're moving forward, and I'll probably do it in conjunction with the curves layer. I could do it all with one curves layer or two curves layers, or with like a levels layer even if I wanted to. And I don't think that it really, more often than not, it doesn't really matter because the end result will be the same. It's all about which one's easiest for you. Easiest or most obvious, right? Like there's a huge advantage to being efficient in Photoshop. And I think that a big part of that's, yeah, it's picking the right tool for the job, but it's really just picking the right tool for you for the job, because there are, you know, a lot of ways to skin any cat in Photoshop. I don't know if that was helpful or not. Maybe, hopefully maybe a little bit. What does our reflection pass look like? I was hoping that I would have been a little bit smarter in making this reflection pass so that we'd have like sharp reflections everywhere. It'd be very nice if you were trying to paint in more moisture and kind of like wet staining to the whole image, but that's okay. We'll just keep working with what we got. So here, I'm going to use a copy merged screen layer. I'm going to blur it a whole bunch. I'm going to saturate it, and I'm going to colorize it. I'm not going to colorize it fully. That's a little bit more into the yellow world, I think. And it's interesting, like it wasn't until you can see that like I completely desaturated this tree. That's you know, not a good job, but it wasn't until I put the screen layer on that it jumps out at me. And so since we're trying to end up with a good result, we're going to try and fix some of these things. So there's the layer. And we might just be able to just turn that down a little bit. And now we're going to grab our screen layer, and we are going to do, as opposed to adjusting the opacity of this screen layer, I'm going to effectively do the same thing globally, just leveling the mask, right? So that everything's, you know, whatever that is, 65 at like a 25% opacity. So that it's still affecting the image as a whole, but because the layer is at 100% opacity, I can go in now with a soft brush sitting at like, you know, flow somewhere in the teens or somewhere in the single digits, like between 5 and 10%. Oh dear Lord, give me like 7%. There we go. And I can paint in a little bit more where I want some light to come out. All right, so like we're painting this mask in this way. So we're not painting a color so much, we're using the colors in the image, which we're going to continue to adjust. But we can continually, if I want to make the front a little bit darker, I can do that as well. Just by painting black into that mask so that it goes away. And we still kind of overdid it a little bit. That's all right. That's another thing. I'm adjusting the color of the umbrella with a hue saturation layer, but not just the color, like as far as the tone, also like the brightness and the hue, right? I do wish that they had the same like HSL sliders as like Lightroom does, where they're all together as opposed to just looking at one individually by color. But really quick way to adjust that without having to, you know, find what mask selects it. just bring a little tiny bit of warmth into the highlights of this guy. We're overall desaturating it. Something about like the greens and blues and that, and this got changed to brick later in this project. What if it's in the final image? It's not. But just trying to make that kind of sit back a little bit. It's a weird material that I didn't do a great job on in 3D. What can you do? Okay. So we're quite different. Not loving what I've done to the bricks here. One thing I should point out, I don't think I'm working in 8-bit at the moment. Usually I work in 16-bit for final images, for any like client images. But like, regardless, right now I noticed that these have gotten a little bit too green. And for little adjustments like this, I almost never, and this isn't necessarily right, I'm just, you know, this is the way that I do it. I almost never like go back and find the place where I made it too green. I almost always just kind of keep moving forward and making the adjustment on top. Because unless you're pushing something like super duper hard, or like in the case of where I removed all of the green, I don't really ever see any actual like visual degradation from it. And you know, that's me not working the best way possible. But again, like my goal is almost always just to be fast in Photoshop. Oh wait, I totally did that wrong. Totally did that wrong. I want it to go there. I don't want it to go there. We go. So this is just using blend if, so that I can isolate this part that I don't know what I did in the rendering for that, and I can kind of darken that down somewhat selectively. And come on, there we go. And hopefully just make it stand out just a little bit less. You can see how like drastically terrible. I think I was going for like that reflected look. Like, oh, it'll be wet, so it'll be more reflective, but I did a terrible job of it. So let's just kind of bring the tones back just a little bit, and we'll warm them up. Something like that, just so that they're a little bit less noticeable. Matthias, I'm not sure that I've ever been asked for a 16-bit TIFF from a client. No, I do not. I do not typically deliver, or have not historically delivered, 16-bit TIFFs. So everything just gets, you know, obviously flattened, alphas, channels, layers, all of that removed, 8 bits, and then saved to TIFF. And I usually save like a couple other obvious formats for my clients, like I will send them, you know, full resolution JPEGs, 2K JPEGs. If they ask for like a specific size, I'm happy to resize it for them. No, I've never had a client ask for a 16-bit TIFF. I don't think I'd have a big problem providing it if they asked for it. I would have much faster reservations if it was for what's it called? Like a layered file. But because of copyright and all that fun stuff, they don't really have the right to change any of my images anyways. With the times that I have been asked for a 16 or a layered, like my PSD, I've asked them why, what do they want to change, and then had a brief conversation about why they're not allowed to change anything, and then just offered. Usually it's been small changes. Oh, we want to add a little sign here or change the signage, and I've usually just done that for free or a small fee depending on what it is. But that's a case-by-case basis, depending on the client, what they're actually asking for, etc., etc. Okay, so we're kind of getting somewhere. I don't love it yet. I want more light on the building. Right now, I feel like the sky's got a lot of color and the rest doesn't. So maybe we need to add some selective colors into the shadows. Let's see. We don't want it to end up feeling like colorized. It's definitely not the look that I'm going for. But we do want to highlight, obviously, the building itself. What do we do now? Also, what does this look like? Oh, wow. I haven't done all of my color calibration fixes. You guys are looking at a very different image, I think, than I am. You guys in the chat, let me know. Does the image look very purple to you right now? I think that it probably does. I really need to sit down and finish all of my computer prep stuff. I feel like I got it like built and then kind of like gave up. Nicholas, to anyone that I do a paint over for, if they want the PSD, I am happy to give that away. Yeah, it does have a purple tone. The difference in this Cintiq, it's strange. It looks quite nice here, and then I look up at this and I'm like, oh, we've made a purple image. That wasn't the goal. What the F? Gotta fix that. Okay, so let's see how much that was. Where did we do that color correction? See, this is, here we go. Yeah, so that went way too blue in the shadows. We're gonna kind of fix that a bit. That's red. Okay. And let's do, usually this is kind of stuff that I do towards like the very end. But we're just gonna keep kind of seeing if we can't get this to a point that I like. So if I want the whole thing to be a little bit warmer and to have all of these colors start to sit together, like a hue saturation layer that's actually set to colorize, but then in the single digits of opacity, and this is where the Wacom does not do a great job. Like obviously that has like a very subtle like warming effect to the whole image, but it also brings all of the colors towards one another. And particularly if you have like a lot of photographic elements that you've been working on or adding in or comping in, that can do some really, really great things. I don't know what color I want this red to really like read as. It's not there yet. I want it to pop. It's getting there. We'll just keep, you can see like everything from here to here is a color adjustment on this girl. I don't have a problem with stacking layers. Some people do, but you know, to each their own. I do think I'm gonna continue. The whole image has gotten, I don't want to say dark, but we do want this whole thing to feel bright, obviously, because the idea that we're going for is not just something that we're really happy about and psyched about making a moody image. I'm trying to make something that I think a client would like. And that means being a little bit mindful of blacks and moodiness and everything else. In my experience, real estate by and large is kind of scared of shadows, which, you know, is like laughable. But we're going to kind of continue to raise some things up, make things a little bit brighter. We might go ahead. We have a decent amount of blacks here on the left side, which I don't mind compositionally. But I'm going to lift the blacks like a significant amount here, and you can kind of see this made kind of the whole image feel a bit washed out. I'm guessing you guys can see in that one. But if we go in and we just use a gradient and mask out kind of like the bottom moving forward, the linear gradient, something like that. Now it's like it's brightening the whole image, but not such that it feels terrible, because the things closest to us still have some blacks in them. I mean, I can't believe like this. So this is obviously I'm going to look at like where we were before. This isn't a pure white sky, but there's zero definition in it, and it's pretty close to a pure white sky. I don't know what I was thinking back then. Not thinking. Let's see. We lifted the blacks, and then she got a little bit green. Get that out. Let's see, how long have we been going here? I feel like I've been streaming all day. Oh, we're over an hour. Okay. Well, you know, you guys were patient and waiting for us to get started. We're going to go a little bit longer and see if we can't get this just a little bit closer. It's kind of sort of getting there, but it's definitely not there yet. So we're going to keep working. If you guys want to hang out longer with me, I appreciate it. Let's see what happens when we run a little bit. Where's my little trusty double whammy here? Oh, that's going to convert the whole thing to 16 bits. That's going to take a second. Clark, I like that idea. Go full on Morton Salt girl. You could probably get away with that. I mean, like, not probably with that girl, but like you could put in, like, when I went out to shoot like in the rain one day looking for someone that looked like this. I wanted them in mostly black because we're in Tribeca in New York. And I wanted her to have a brightly colored, specifically red umbrella, and I didn't find her. But I found someone that was kind of close enough, in the right pose, with the right perspective, and then I changed all those colors. Though, one of the things I noticed when I was looking at this image is the only cab that's not motion blurred is the one like right next to her. Theoretically, it could be coming towards, either to let somebody else off, or maybe she had hailed it a second ago. You can't really tell in this. But that's like the one visually that should be blurry, if anything. What can you do? Never thought of it before. Okay, this is still doing its thing. The image we're working on, by the way, is like 5K by 5K, I think. So this might take a second. Didn't think about that when I pressed it, but it gives me a moment to go and put on some more tunes since we've run out of tunes. Where is, you know what I'm going to put on? I made this account, which not this account. You guys have heard this account. I've made this like playlist that I've labeled just like weird electric, but now I'm just putting like any song I hear that's like kind of strange and moody into it, and it's like got this like pretty kind of like weird, sometimes epic vibe. I feel like as a playlist, but I rather like it. You guys let me know what you think. Well, hey, let me know if you can hear it first and foremost. Assuming you can hear it, let me know. There's all kinds of stuff in this one, I think. Okay. Let's see here. So this is just like my 2 or 3, favorite filters. I think that gets a little bit muddy, but we can probably bring that back just a smidge. What we might do is undo that because it doesn't really help a ton. It helps a little, but not as much as I was hoping for it to. And because we have all of these weird layers, I'm gonna delete that for a second. I'm gonna go back to all the way down to the bottom with our sky. I'm gonna kind of see what happens if. And this is always, I always enjoy doing this. It always feels a little strange coming back down this far in a layer stack and making changes. Because it's obviously making a very different set of changes than it would have if we had made it at the beginning, because there's all kinds of layers affecting it now. But we are going to come in and kind of paint in a few little spots here and see what that does for us. I feel like the sky is not doing what I wanted it to do initially. I feel like that helps a little bit. And then I also think that we're going to go ahead and so I'm just making a copy of the sky, and I want to see if I can do something a little bit more interesting down here, a little heavier down here maybe. So it's the same exact sky, I just moved it, and I'm kind of just masking it in to this down just a little bit in here to get maybe a little bit more shape into the image. A little bit of that orangey color out of it. Dario, it totally would, but I don't like. There's like the one option that we could do. Let's just give it a quick try up at the top here. I don't want to do like that kind of like bright lens flary orangish light coming from the right for this one. I don't think. Anyways. Because for that, I feel like you really want the light coming towards you and you want it to be like in camera. For this, the building doesn't read as well as I would like. Oh no, Dario, I very much appreciate the suggestion. And if I feel like to get that, if you want that like orangey light, then you kind of have to commit to all of the colors being a little bit more saturated to compete with it, right? Which is not the idea that I have in my head, but I also don't love where this is at just yet, so maybe that is the right answer. But the one thing I was thinking is that what if... Oh, not that. Whoa. That got away from me just a smidge. This is obviously a very heavy-handed look at an idea. We'll see if we like it in a moment. Lord, we have so much going on here. So what I want to do is I want to darken down. Right now I'm darkening everything kind of. But specifically I'm adding this extra one so we can add a little bit more contrast at the edge of our building, so to speak, quote unquote, our building. So that line comes out just a little bit more. And then the other thing that I'm doing up here at the top with this crazy layer, right, like there is something kind of cool there. We don't have any reddishness just yet, but we do have a bit more kind of focus. Sorry, lost my train of thought whilst I was trying to talk and think through an issue. There's the amount of layers that we're dealing with at the moment. It's kind of nuts. And I started out without trying to do this. Whatever. Life goes on. Let's go ahead. Mark, I don't think you're wrong on needing more contrast in the building. The question is how we want the contrast. And you know where I think that we really need it? We're going to see. Ooh, here we go. We don't have a lot of room to create more contrast. Oops. Which is a little bit of an issue. But I think one place that we can do it is we can start to brighten up some of these windows as though that they were reflecting a little bit more sunshine. Not all of them. Some of them stay dark. Bottom ones stay dark. Something like that. That's drawing some attention to it. We need to fix that edge. We need that edge to come back out. So I feel like this is one of those reasons why I don't like, if I want to select the building at this point, I need like 12 different masks, which I don't like. I'll go back down to the sky. Try something here. Where's our sky? Here's our sky. Don't want to lift all of the colors of the sky, but there are some colors of the sky I want to lift. And we're getting a decent amount of banding in the sky at the moment. Yeah, what can you do? There would be an argument that goes against the one that I said before, which is, yes, there is a point at which you can push things too far. I think the one, I desaturated all of the color out of the sky at the beginning because I didn't want the clouds to feel warm. And as a result now we have all these like purples in here, which we can desaturate, which will help remove some of them. And the rest we can get rid of, most likely with noise, I would say. Yeah. And that might also be... I'm surprised Photoshop's not better at this. Oop, nope, don't want that. I say okay, yeah, I don't want to liquefy anything, I hit the wrong button. there's a little bit of pinks in the sky. A lot of times you end up seeing banding on your display, but it's just because you have layer upon layer upon layer of adjustments, if you're working like I am. You know what might also have been cool? Now this will be something I don't think I would try. Here's the idea that I just had in my head. Let's grab our building. Kind of our building. All the way up at the top. I think this would have made for a cool image. I think I would want to render this if I was going to try and pull this off. But the idea would be, obviously, if this is like a sun breaking through the clouds, you could very easily put like the top half of this building into shadow. That was gonna look cooler in my head. I think no on that idea, though having that darker is nice. It's not that much darker. I feel like that could have been a cool image. I feel like you have to really build the whole image around that, maybe. Okay, let's see here. I feel like we're creating a more realistic scene overall, but I don't know if I'm going to call it better just yet. Like, this looks ridiculous. But I kind of like its ridiculousness, minus the ridiculously white sky. This I don't love just yet. Excuse me. There's one of your problems. Let's see. Let's take that down. Let's move back towards yellow, maybe. Was that the entirety of that playlist? What should we do here? We keep going darker, and this was that black material on the building is a black material. It's a black concrete, ductile concrete. What do we do to fix this? Another idea. Let's take our sky back up here again. thought in my head being here, give a little bit more shape to the sky. It's not that, like, that's not fixing the problem that we have. But, you know, you guys know my feelings about continuing to do things whilst trying to figure out problems. I'm all for it. Might be just a little bit too much. A little bit too much. Does that help at all? Not significantly, but a little bit. Just a little bit more shape to the image. I don't know. We might call this. I don't think. I can't leave well enough alone. I'm not thrilled with where this is at yet. I kind of like where it's headed, but it feels like there's like something that I'm very much missing. I'm not sure what it is just yet. I'm going to turn off that super bright light for a moment. Oh, well, thank you, Clark. I agree. That's starting to bring it, like, focusing everything through, giving it like that, like, final, not contrast overall, or not contrast locally, but contrast, you know, globally on the image. And I think that there's a bit of like a reddish hue to this whole image. And so this is something I do it a lot. My images, I do find that like I have a tendency to kind of keep pushing things a little bit more red and red and red, and then your eyes get very used to it as you're looking at it. And so then you keep pushing it further and further red. One of the things I do frequently at the end of an image or towards the end of an image, make a new curves layer, take the gray eyedropper guy. I just pick a color that's kind of, now this is way too cool and I don't want it to be a cool image. But if we take this guy and drop it down to, you know, what are we, somewhere like the 40 to 60%, it kind of, removes that color cast. It's basically a white balance correction, kind of. Not entirely, but sort of. And it tends to bring a lot of like richness back into your image overall. Now, obviously, these clouds have gotten totally fucked, and we're not going to fix those today. We might do one or two things to fix them, but not just yet, anyways. I think what we're gonna do, let's run the thing that I would probably run, and I ran earlier. Oh, yep, stop. Oops, some daisies. Copy. Let's run my two little favorite scripts, see what they do. This is an image, I think the ground plane is too black. If this was going to a client, they'd say the street looks too dark, the shadows are too dark. Which is fair. I don't think I'm going to try to fix them just now. I'm kind of okay with them. But a client would definitely have a problem with that. It doesn't look bright and happy and cheery. But, you know, we are going for it. I guess we are. I don't know. That's the weird thing, right? Like, even if this image looked better than it did, Clark. Yeah. The cars totally need headlights. That's really funny to me. Wasn't even on my radar, buddy. The cars totally need headlights. We have like a couple of lights on that are always a little bit strange and probably shouldn't be on for this time. Like the street light, there's no reason for that to be on because we're still like in daytime. Headlights were on. Oh, so I didn't actually... That's interesting. Let's turn on some headlights, folks. They should have been rendered in. Obviously. They weren't. So we're going to do a color dodge layer. We're going to fill it with black, which does end up making a difference. We're going to paint in some headlights. I can't... That kind of shocks me that I painted these in back then. Who knows why? But paint we shall. And I'm also... So I'm painting with like white into... I'm painting with white into a black layer to start brightening these guys up. Make them look to be on. And then I'm going to colorize this layer as opposed to painting with a color into the color dodge layer, which kind of always causes... It doesn't cause problems, but it makes it more difficult to deal with them. I wonder if I did this initially... I wonder if I was having render time issues, because a lot of motion blur. I don't know. But either way, let's get some headlights on there. Obviously, we're going to need some reflections, which I'm just going to accept the reflections aren't going to look great right now because they're being done on top of everything. Clark, my man, good eye. Then we would also have... Did I turn it on before? I don't know. We would also have a little bit of light coming down into these guys. These guys glow like a warmish color. They're not going to look very good here, but let's see here. What's going on? Paint, 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 paint. It's gonna look sloppily painted, but that's gonna be life for... Oops, that was drastic. That's gonna be life for today on this, because we're not gonna win them all. Win some, lose some. A little bit of light, and then we'll just tone that back altogether. Yeah, at some point I photoshopped in all of that fun stuff. Oh well, what can you do? And then let's make these guys glow just a little bit more. little, wee bit saturated there, would you say? I would say so. Well, the lights are at least turned on now, Clark, but they're not looking great, but that's okay. We can lift the blacks just a little bit, see? Do the same thing that we did before. So this doesn't fix the problem, but it helps the problem, I think. Maybe it doesn't. What hath happened to that? I don't know. Okay. Minus the weird, so there's no color there. So there's some banding. So let's fix a little bit of this banding. You can see all of the pushing and pulling I've done and the destruction that it's done to this thing. That's the color I want. So what we're going to do is we're going to make another saturation layer. We are going to first make just a little bit of this area here, so that we're just affecting this one area, and we're going to set the color eyes, and we're going to just visually kind of match those colors together. Alright, that's a little bit too green still. Too green still. Something like that-ish. And so we could go in and paint this, and I would paint those edges back out, or go find where I completely messed them up and fix them. But at the very least, we can make some of it go away. Maybe bring the green into that. Here, I'm just painting with a super soft brush on these like terrible edges. I know this isn't important, but this might be valuable to someone that's never ran into this issue, so I'll kind of quickly do it. I'm just painting with a soft brush over all of like the terribly bad looking things. Just sampling over the image. Obviously, this is like something to do last, because then if I go back underneath and change anything, we're going to see all kinds of problems. But I'm not really worrying. We can quickly grab a layer and mask it so that it's not hitting the building itself. But we're just going to keep on painting to get rid of the terrible stuff. Now, one of the problems that comes, especially painting with like this soft, super soft brush, is that we're going to get like no noise, which you can see how like all of that stands out against an image that has noise altogether. To some degree, that's going to be fixed at the very end when we add some grain over the entire image. But what it's not going to fix is that, missed a mask there. What it's not going to fix is that there's still going to be different amounts of noise. And this, if this was getting sampled, downsampled all the way down to, let's call it 1600 pixels, it wouldn't matter. Wouldn't significantly matter. But if a client was printing this at any decent size, differences in noise as it like jumps between photo and rendering and backplate and sky or whatever it might be, becomes much more jarring when it's printed, I guess you should say, especially if it's printed large and you can get close to it. And so making sure that we didn't do anything stupid, like, you know, we kind of painted like some dark spots in here. So we do all that painting, and then you can see the noise from the image behind it. And what we're going to do is we're going to add another layer on top of this. Shift backspace, fill with 50% gray. Right, so you can see all of the areas where we painted are now 50% gray. We're going to set that to, we'll start with like hard light, you never really know. And we're just going to kind of sort of match this noise level. Which is there's usually two steps to it, I have found. One is you want to add like a decent amount of noise, more than you need, because we need to blur it so that the size and the scale kind of match. And usually that blur is somewhere between 0.5 and 0.4 pixels, something like that. 0.5 and 1.5 pixels. So now we have like the scale kind of matching. And we might want to try overlay instead of hard light. I have no idea if, like, with the compression algorithms of everything going through, if you guys can see what we're looking at right here. But here is the broken pixelation JPEG noise. Who knows what it's from? A bunch of things plus me, you know, pushing and pulling things really heavily. And then this is it painted, and you can see we have noise on the top, noise on the bottom, and then where I painted it smooth. And then this is just that overlay layer sitting on top of it to give it noise. Right, so there you can see where I painted, there you can't. You can see some of the things I missed painting, but you get the idea. Was that a little bit drastic? I feel like it kind of works. All right, and then you can just continue painting underneath here, and then the noise is everywhere. So, quick way to get rid of, quick way to paint and not have it be super duper obvious that you painted. It's still going to be somewhat obvious because depending on how heavily you paint and everything else, but at least the noise part starts to go away. The noise and the banding. And I do that a lot to smooth out clear skies as well. Okay. This was the old one. This is the new one. It's not there yet, but I think it's at least headed in the right direction. Let me know what you guys think. I do want to see what happens if we go and we play with this new software that I've been playing with. Oh wow, so we've been playing with this for almost 2 hours. I do want to see what happens. So this is that Exposure X5 software that I have been experimenting with and enjoying. Let's see what kind of... Oops. That does some fun stuff. Maybe a little too blown out, but I like it. Where's the overlay thing? Let's turn that on. It is funny, a frame does make it feel finished. It always does. That one. Let's see what else we got in here. This is all the right presets. Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to buy this guy. I don't know what it costs. I think it's like $100, something like that. And I don't fully get it just yet. Let's see what let's see what happens if we apply low. This image has become somewhat contrasting, I would say. And let's see what we get with some of the low contrast options. And I'll probably end up doing an episode just on this piece of software once I feel like I have a better actual understanding of it. But I'm liking it thus far. Before, after. Adds a little bit of green into everything, I think. Brightens up almost all of the shadows. Let's see what the tone curve looks like. This is like your more traditional, kind of more Lightroom esque adjustments, which is pretty fantastic. I think I keep. Where is that falling under blues right now? That little bit of sky up there. Like I feel it's the blues in it just don't match. Maybe we just need to desaturate and keep darkening them. There's like a very strange, I feel like, relationship between saturation and brightness of a color. On this monitor, that looks good. That looks pretty good on that monitor. Let's just say okay for now. It's been like a 2-hour stream. Did like a 3-hour stream before this. I don't know if we're gonna do more with this or not. This was a fun exercise. I feel like we got somewhere, and I think that with a bit more subtlety or control. Where was it? What's this one? Yeah, so that's what we started with. That's where we got it to. So I'm pretty okay with most of the things. There's a lot of little details we could fix, but I do think it's definitely... There's something I still like about this original one, but there's a lot that I don't like. This feels a little bit muddy to me still, which I think we would have been able to fix. I think the easiest way to have fixed this would have been to relight it with like a proper direct sun, not an actual sun, but like an HDRI that has like sharp shadows, and then used blockers to simulate clouds farther away from the scene, so that we're controlling that the light is actually falling exactly where we want it to, but that like little pieces of the cabs are actually getting hit by light. I think would be nice, and actually seeing some shadows coming across the road here and there, I think would have been helpful. I think overall, I think we're gonna call that learning. I think the biggest difference is that I think I would have rendered it better if I did it again now. But guys, thank you as always for being here. Oh, I'm sitting here in the dark, aren't I? Yes, I am. There's some light, maybe, sort of, kind of. Probably too much. Still dealing with the Logitech cam not wanting to follow my directions. Guys, thank you for being here. We will be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock, on time this time. Or as on time as I ever am, which is to say 5 minutes late. And we're going to be doing... I don't know what we're going to do tomorrow. I have a couple ideas for things that are coming up this week. And Thursday we should be having Patrick, fingers crossed, which I'm excited for. But next week or this week, there's a couple things I've been working on. They're not done yet. But I think they'll be cool. I've been playing a lot in Procreate. For those of you that have been asking, I have been. So guys, thank you as always. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope to see you all tomorrow. Yeah, that's all I got. Awkward time. If that wasn't awkward enough already. We got one beep. Boop.